Hello everyone and welcome to Life Begins at 20. My name is Mark and today we have the next instalment of Inside the Cube. If you missed the introduction to the series, there will be a card on the screen now and a link in the description below. In this episode we're going to be diving into the second of our archetypes, which is known as Reanimator. This will take a look at what the archetype is, how it works, why it is effective, plus the anchor cards for it and how to support it in your cube. Just before we get into the video, I'd like to thank the sponsors of my cube content, the Mana Base, for giving me the opportunity to grow and bring you all even better content. For those who don't know who they are, they're a website of fellow Magic the Gathering content creators, like myself, bringing you content from all formats. Definitely do check them out over at themanabase.com, as I'm sure you'll enjoy what you'll see. So back to the episode, and I'm really excited to bring you one of my favourite archetypes in Cube, and hopefully this will give you a better understanding of the archetype itself in Cube construction and even gameplay if you weren't so sure about it. So let's get stuck in. As many players know, the Reanimator archetype was unofficially named by the card Reanimate, which was printed in the Tempest block. The Reanimator archetype's sole purpose is to put a big creature into play through getting it into your graveyard and then cheating it back into play as soon as possible to get the greatest amount of value and hammer home the win. This is the most common combo archetype traditionally found in cubes. Although the Reanimation archetype in its best form sits squarely into a combo deck type due to the way it works to get its full advantage, in a drafting scenario it's not always possible to get the perfect cards. The positive is that the archetype benefits from the fact that the cards will fit into other shells. Control decks are happy to have the extra value from the reanimation spells within their decks, while mid-range decks will also be happy to see these cards utilising the graveyard as a tool rather than the main focus, although this could then be classed more as the Rexer pod archetype that this cross-pollinates well with, which I'll talk about later in the video. To create a successful Reanimator deck, you will need the following three things. A big creature, preferably that has an immediate effect when played or some kind of defense mechanism, a way to get it into the graveyard, and a reanimation spell. Fancy meeting a Grizzlebrand, Woodfall Primus, Iona, Sundering Titan or Simic Sky Swallower in the first couple of turns? I didn't think so. A reanimation combo is even possible on turn 1 with the following combination. Play a Swamp, then Dark Ritual, play Entomb, finding Grizzlebrand and putting it into your graveyard, followed by playing Exhume to get Grizzlebrand onto play. This combination can really put the clock onto your opponent, although you'd have to have an immense starting hand to pull this off. As with any combo deck, there is a sequence of events that need to take place in order to pull it off. The first part is getting the big creature into the graveyard, which can be done in a large variety of ways, either discarding it from your hand, utilising a tutor to get it from your deck into the graveyard, or even milling yourself. The second part is utilising reanimation spells to cheat your big creature into play a lot earlier than it really should be. They come in a large variety with varying levels of downsides to justify the fact that the creature comes into play that early. So, using Grizzlebrand as the example, to get him into play, Reanimate would cost you 8 life on top of the mana cost. Exhume lets your opponent put a creature into play as well, although early on this really shouldn't be anything or very little to harm you. Animate Dead gives the creature -1/0, and when the enchantment goes, the creature is then sacrificed. And last of our examples is Recurring Nightmare, where you will have to sacrifice another creature in order to get Grizzlebrand back. But as most of you can see from this, the downsides really aren't too much to dissuade you from doing this early in the game. Later on, depending on your matchup, the decision may not become so cut and dry. Consistency is often an issue with Reanimator style decks in Cube. As you need to get all three parts to make the combo work, it can often prove to be difficult to put together. Making sure you have a good enough deck behind you in case you have to hardcast some of the fatties is often a route that players will go down, especially if early on in the draft they aren't seeing the cards that they desire. Thankfully, as the archetype is predominantly based around the colour black, there is a huge abundance of cards to help with this, along with secondary colours blue, red, green and white to support it further. For these cards, I'll be talking about unpowered and powered cubes for the anchor cards, but we'll give a larger list of supporting cards that will give options to peasant and pauper cubes too. So for the powered and unpowered players, if you see cards that won't get into your cube, please don't worry, I'm not saying they should all go in at every power level. Like I mentioned a moment ago, the primary colour you'll need for the Reanimator archetype is black, as this colour has access to the vast majority of reanimation spells and a lot of the tutors to support the archetype. For the secondary colours, which work well with the archetype, all of them offer cards to support it. While blue and green offer a lot more, red and white have a couple of key cards that help, whether we are talking enablers, reanimation spells, or targets. As for the main anchor cards of this archetype, we have a few cards that really do the job well for us. Recurring Nightmare is key for its regular creature reanimation. Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, Imperial Seal, Survival of the Fittest, and Fauna Shaman for finding combo pieces, with the latter two discarding creatures as well. Liliana of the Veil for her +1, Pack Rat, which has a nice bonus on top of discarding cards, Looteral Core, Enclave Cryptologist, and Faithless Looting for discarding those fatties into the graveyard while drawing cards to locate those combo pieces. These cards play a key role in the archetype while still being extremely strong cards in their own right. As for the supporting cards for this archetype, there are plenty to choose from. I'll be splitting up this list slightly differently for this archetype, as the cards fall into three main categories: enablers, reanimation spells, and targets. For the enablers, we have Liliana Death's Majesty, whose +1 ability helps to discard those creatures into the graveyard, while she could also be classed as a reanimation spell too, due to her -3 ability. Although her cost might be classed as a little high for being pure combo, she gives us a lot of versatility. The other enablers include Entomb, Buried Alive, Una's Prowler, Wild Mongrel, Noose Constrictor, Thirst for Knowledge, Waterfront Bouncer, Frantic Search, Merfolk Looter, Wheel of Fortune, Psychotog, Forbidden Alchemy, and any of the Mastercores. As for the reanimation spells, some of which are strong enough in their own right to be in a wider variety of mid-range decks too, they include Reanimate, Animate Dead, Exhume, Necromancy, Dance of the Dead, Living Death, Makeshift Mannequin, Goblin Welder, Unburial Rites, and Karmic Guide. As for the reanimation targets, there are loads of cards you'll be able to think of here. This list is for the ones that will make a huge impact on the board when they come in, or have a form of protection. Grizzlebrand does everything you could ask for in a reanimation target, by having evasion and necropotence built in. Elish Norn crushes creature-heavy decks, Iona disrupts combo and control decks really well, and other great targets include Sheoldred, Inkwell Leviathan, Sphinx of the Steel Wind, Woodfall Primus, Terastodon, Emrakul the Promised End, Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, Sundering Titan, Bogard and Hellkite, Simic Sky Swallower, and so many more. I'm sure there are plenty of fatties in your cubes to cheat in. Some are sub-optimal for finishing off a game or have no form of defense, but these creatures, along with many more that you can think of, will get the job done. There are obviously more cards in Magic that can do what you need in each of these card types, but these are a good selection of some of the newer and most commonly found in cubes. As you may have already guessed, this archetype cross-pollinates well with a few others looking for similar cards. The first of which is the Fatty Sneak archetype, another really original name, I know. It works well with a lot of the cards, especially with finding creatures and cheating them into play. It utilises cards like Show and Tell and Sneak Attack to achieve that. Rexurpod is another archetype that benefits from some of these cards and is based around the following: Recurring Nightmare, Survival of the Fittest, and Birthing Pod. These two archetypes share the desire to use strong creatures and reuse them on their way to victory. Therefore, by having the traditional creature base of a cube, it's easy to add both of these archetypes with very little fuss. The Artifact archetype is another which utilises many of the cards in Reanimator by using cards like Tinker, Goblin Welder, and Duretti, who want to sneak in big artifacts too. The likes of Sundering Titan, Wormcoil Engine, and Myr Battlesphere are the main targets to cheat into play, and these also make great reanimation targets. Lastly, the Madness archetype utilises the large number of discard outlets within Reanimator to great effect, making their spells like Fiery Temper, Violent Eruption, and Reckless Worm, just to name a few, a lot cheaper. So in summary, this handy table will be a rough guide to what we've already talked about in the video. Please feel free to pause the video and use it as a handy reference for how to support the archetype in your cubes. There may well be some more cards that will help to support this archetype in all power levels of cube, so feel free to add those in the comment section below for other viewers to see. I love this archetype in Cube and it's really fun to play and can often be very rewarding. After seeing your opponent's face when you bring out a turn 2 or 3 Grizzlebrand will really help them to start respecting the archetype a lot more. If this is something you like the look of and haven't supported it yet, it's fairly straightforward to incorporate into your cube and add another dimension to your gameplay. In the next episode of Inside the Cube, we're going to be taking a look at another very common archetype in the form of Burn. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you'll know when it'll be online. I'd like to again thank the Mana Base for sponsoring this video and adding me to their list of great content creators. Definitely do check them out at themanabase.com as all of your format needs will be covered from Pauper to Limited and Cube. Definitely do check them out. Just to remind you that I'm currently doing a 750 subscriber giveaway, giving you the opportunity to win an Amonkhet bundle. There will be a link in the description below of how to enter that, and the closing date is at the end of May, so there's plenty of time left to enter. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, share it, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already for new videos every Tuesday and Friday. Don't forget to hit that notification button to know when each video is uploaded. With your support, we can really help the channel to grow. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.